Killer Clown, wow, 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 from outer space. Yes, yes, in space, no one can eat ice cream.
Is it illegal?
That's right. Yes, it's illegal. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's Beth and James. We're back for episode 3, and we are doing Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Awesome. Awesome. How you doing today, Beth?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I absolutely love Killer Klowns from Outer Space, and it thrilled me more than ever to be able to watch this again and again and again in the last couple of days. It is hard to believe that it's been over 30 years since the nightmare that is Killer Klowns from Outer Space was released. But for you, it's been a little bit more recent since you've watched it, obviously. So, a little bit of background. I believe I was watching Cinemax, or as we called it when I was a kid, Skinemax. And I was up late, as per usual, scanning for some type of entertainment, probably on my thieving cable box, apparently, that I love. If you are one of our Patreons, you'll hear that story from my sister. I have one of those nighttime internal clocks that every kid seems to be, where you're up all hours of the night. You know, you want to sleep all day, up all night type thing. Everyone knew I stayed up late for the most part, with no one really seemed to care in the house. It's just, everybody just kind of came to accept it. However, my older sister had recently busted me watching the movie Hamburger the movie.
That sounds fantastic.
It is one of the best 80s movies as well. It really was one of the greatest movies. And so I was supposed to be unbanned from cable watching after dark. But of course, that didn't last long. And of course, it's my parents who, and once they were asleep, they were asleep. My dad had to get up at like 4 a.m. to go to work. So as long as I was quiet enough not to bother them, I was pretty much left to my own devices. I just had to wait a lot longer than usual to start watching. And of course, it was the 80s, so we had the traditional one TV in the living room set up, and that actually had cable. Like, I did have a TV in my room, but it was only used for video games at the time. So this was down in Florida, of course. So it's not like today where everybody has their own walking TV on their own phone. You know, wish we did, but unfortunately we didn't. So I was around 11 years old when Killer Klowns came out. But I might as well have been 4, as afraid of it as I was as a kid.
Oh, really?
Oh, my God. Yes. Now to look back, I get it. It's a B movie. It's full of cheese. It basically makes fun of itself for being so cheesy. It's meant to be a good time. But it was not a good time for me as a kid. It legit had me more terrified than the miniseries of It when it came out 2 years later. Mm. Don't get me wrong. Tim Curry, of course, we know him as Darkness.
Right.
From Legend. He was in it, and he was it, and he was iconic, and he scared me as well, but, not nearly as bad as Killer Klowns did at that time.
I want to say I was a little bit younger when I first saw this, like, as a kid. I was around maybe 7 or 8, but it was one of my favorite movies growing up. But I want to say I wasn't nearly as scared like that scene, because I feel like the clowns were so ridiculously, like, over the top scary in a sense, but that they weren't really scary to me. They were more creepy.
The Ringling Bros, Barnum and Bailey had like this one, like their default clown guy that they had, and he wasn't really as clown made up. He kind of was wearing like this like 1930s outfit type deal, had black curly hair. Couldn't stand him, and he was always there. And like when they came to town, they would have him like come to the schools and such, and like be like, in your face, and he didn't talk. He just made gestures and stuff.
That's
and I'm
horrible.
like, look, you got to go. And then I saw this movie, and I was like, if that dude comes in, I might pee a little. I'm gonna
Pee a lot.
Pee a lot. I need to go to the nurse. I need something so that I don't have to be around that guy. And he was on billboards forever, and I'm just like, I drive down the road and I'm like, oh great, PTSD.
Maybe that's what it was. The fact that, growing up, I didn't really have that kind of interaction with clowns, so that fear for me wasn't a childhood trauma, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
where,
you know why?
I didn't go to a circus and there were
exactly.
clowns.
there it is.
But I don't know. Again, like I find them more of a creepy than a scary. Like kind of like how insects are. Like they're more like creepy, but they're not scary.
Right. I get that.
So
I get that. Well, growing up, we kind of had insects everywhere in Florida and in the trees and everywhere. So I wasn't as bothered by them because they were just kind of like inevitable. If I had had clowns climbing around in the trees and everywhere,
that would have been a sight. Yeah, I think I would have peed as well.
For good reason. For good reason. Along those lines, though, I do think the whole idea of a kid being facing nightmares alone is horrible. It is a strong suit for horror movies. There's nothing worse than knowing that you are right about something and no one believing you. And that is basically the position we held as children. I mean, if you think about it, you're a kid, you know, what does a dumb kid know? Or, oh, it's just your imagination. I mean, how many times did something like that get said as a kid? And you're just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just wrong. I mean, that's a lot of lines of like when they talk about like, oh, magic in movies like Hook and the Santa Claus and movies like that, where of course it's kids that do it because kids can still accept that there's magic. They can accept that. Whereas when you get older, you've been taught so much and so many times that's not real or this, not and the other. It's just been kind of beat into you.
Get pulled over into the aisle and your mom tells you that Easter Bunny isn't real anymore and you have to just sit there.
By the way, Easter Bunny's not real. Smile for the picture. You'll get a piece of candy. Oh, God, I hope there's no kids listening. Easter Bunny's real, ladies and gentlemen. Easter Bunny is real. We've confirmed he was here earlier.
Santa Claus is not, though. He's a fraud.
Oh no. But Krampus? Krampus is real.
He makes me pee a little.
Oh, jeez. There's a lot of peeing on this episode. Movies such as Invaders from Mars, The Faculty, A Nightmare on Elm Street, they all play on the horrible tactic of where kids are going through something and they're just not being believed. Even more so, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, no matter which version you watch, also plays on the same fear. And that's adults. That's where adults are seeing stuff going on that's crazy. And people are like, no, Joe's always been like that. And you're like, no, Joe used to beat me up and now he wants to be friends. That's not, and then usually by the time they do believe him, it's too late.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody's a pod person now. I should have believed you. Yeah, you probably should have. So while the clowns are frightening, the aspect of non-belief is even worse to me. And speaking of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, we will get into the similarities of that a little bit later with this movie versus Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So, a little bit of background. Killer Klowns is written, directed, and pretty much everything that has to do with the movie by the Chiodo brothers, Edward, Charles, and Steven. It was their first and only film, although they did work on other films, such as Pee-wee's Big Adventure. They did the Freaky Large Marge scene, which, yes, we are going to review it, even if you don't want to. Team America. I believe you've seen that in some way, shape, or form, which you probably shouldn't have. Critters. And even the movie Elf. No?
I hate that movie. Is it the Christmas one?
Yes.
Yeah, I hate that movie.
Yeah, they did the very beginning with Arctic Puffin. Not now, Arctic Puffin, and the snowman and all that. That's their work. To me, the details of this film, of Killer Klowns from Outer Space, are amazing. I really appreciate the little things that they put into it. Attention to detail wise, things such as like the footprints in the jail, the facial expressions that the clowns make, the popcorn gun, and even the set itself with like the extreme colors and cartoon setting. Like,
I really like that. Yeah.
Like when they're running through at the end and they're like, there's like the giant snake heads and that they go through and the doors and the moving parts that are like a fun house. And even when they're like when they go into somebody's house and like they like confetti it and everything like that, or they put streamers everywhere. Like there's always stuff going on with these clowns to really show the contrast between normal and them. And I really think that the visuals in this movie really did it for me.
I think that helps you also with the what we were talking about like last episode, the attention span. It keeps you wanting to keep looking at the screen because you're like, what's going to happen next? With the colors and everything. And
right.
Like, it was very entertaining.
Right. It wasn't just somebody manspreading and standing around. Nothing against Legend. It's a good movie. So what was your initial impressions of the movie? Like what it was going to be like? Did you look at any of the preview of the work, or did you watch the preview of itself?
Well, like I said, I watched this when I was a child, first of all, and I'd watched it pretty much throughout my childhood couple of times, like every other year, coming back to it, seeing how, because you watch things as a kid and you watch it again when you're older, and it's like, oh, I didn't notice it before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun to watch that like that. But I mean, we've always laughed at this movie and made fun of it. So I mean, I've always had a really good time with this movie. But watching the trailer, I mean, the trailer seemed kind of like lack thereof. It wasn't really as interesting as the movie actually is. So I mean, I gave the trailer a 2.5 out of 5.
Really, just didn't do it justice.
Yeah.
Like one of the, I didn't watch the trailer. I meant to before. Again, one of the great things about the 80s is they had like the same guy. I think Geico even did a joke of him that did the trailers. That did the trailers of movies. They completely did. It's in a world where you're going to get eaten by a tomato, or you thought it was safe to be out there, and then guess what? It's not. Like the same guy's voice. And I don't know if he did this one, but like when you would go to the movies as a kid and they would show all the previews, like for Jason, Freddy, any movie really that came out, like you would just listen to the same guy do like every trailer one right after another. And it's just like, oh, who is this guy? And then one of the commercials of something, and like I said, I think it was Geico, they did it and they were like, he was like, in a world where you want to save car insurance or something like that. It was just really funny. So that was basically the entire 80s was this guy doing that. So anyway, so our story begins showing the busy little town of Crescent Cove, which seems to be bustling. Lots of teenagers, and I use that term loosely because these people look like they're in their 20s easily. They're running the streets, buying what is just labeled as
beer.
What are you drinking? Beer. I'll have a beer. And they're probably, they look up to no good. We do get a quick intro to Officer Curtis Mooney. He seems to be, he's not necessarily in charge of the police department because the captain is out of town until Monday, supposedly. But he's definitely the one that's been there for a long time. So he's a little bit hardened, and he has zero time for young people. It really seems that he has no time for anybody.
Yeah, he seems like he's got no time for anything.
All of the young folk seem to be heading to the top of the world, which is, their version of Makeout Point, to do what you do at places like Makeout Point. I do appreciate in this film the throwback era feel of the town so far. It makes me think of the movie Grease, where they have relatively small town, Makeout Point, even a fair at the end. It's very middle of America-ish for me before Walmart wrecked it out. So, I mean, that's really that. And I also enjoy movies where the title screens are going, but there's actually movie already going.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that really helps with keeping me attention. There's nothing worse than going to, I mean, I can't think of a movie offhand that does it, but like 15 minutes of credits where nothing is going on. You're just like, oh my gosh, great, written, produced by so-and-so. I don't care. I just came to watch the movie. I've already had to sit through 30 minutes of previews, and now I get another 15 minutes of dragging on. Yeah,
or it's just like showing the town and like little birds and stuff running around. Like, I don't want to see that. I don't.
Right. So this movie jumps right into, I mean, from like the 80s electric laser beam Killer Klowns from outer space that just like it's like you're like blown away from the jump, and now it's like in THX surround, so you're like, wow, this is crazy, what's going on? And it goes right into it, and you're already getting character development of people, and I really enjoy that about this movie. We do find Mike Tobacco. Yes, his last name is Tobacco.
I didn't know that.
And Debbie Stone, and they're looking to drink and make merry. We do want to give a quick shout out to the actress who plays Debbie in this movie. She also played Deb in the cult classic Weird Science, which we may in fact review. I'm not 100% sure. Her name is Suzanne Snyder, and I just felt that she really needed a shout out. From what I could tell doing research, she really was the only one in this movie that had that kind of history of acting for these characters. Mooney had been in some stuff, and Farmer Green, who we're about to talk about, had been in some stuff, and he would also go on to be in movies such as he played Gramps in House 2, which we may or may not ever do, because I don't really want to do sequels per se.
Yeah.
I really want to stick to originals. But yeah, so I mean, he was in some stuff, but nothing huge. Nobody in this movie is huge. But yeah, Deb, you know, if you ever saw Weird Science, she's the blonde in that movie, and she was one of the girls, as Robert Downey Jr. Referred to her when they were gonna have Anthony Michael Hall make them a woman, like they had done. They were like, "Do we want to? What about the girls?" They're like, "Meh." And one of them is Deb. So anyway, to stop rambling on about that. So enough about that. Back to the clowns. So the comedy relief duo of Rich and Paul Terenzi show up, peddling their ice cream, and basically get pelted with trash and chased off due to them being interrupting the festivities.
Yeah, they actually, my favorite quote from this line is I want to say their first thing they say, which is, "We'll give you the stick, you give it a lick, and it'll tickle you all the way down." And it seems to be a common thread between these movies we've watched so far, with these innuendos.
Yeah, innuendos all over the place. Yeah, they're like, I also like, they say, you're not getting any. You're talking about they're not getting any ice cream.
Yeah.
He screams at, "Shut up!" And he's like, "Well, you're not getting any." And he's like, "We were getting some before you showed up," you know. And it's just like nice references. But them showing up is basically an excuse to introduce the characters and show that they have an ice cream truck with a friggin' giant clown head on top of it. I think it's called Jojo the Clown. I think that's what they call it.
Yeah, I think so as well.
And yes, a megaphone attached. So all of this does come into play later in the movie, but this is like a real quick way of introducing it without making it a huge deal.
Right.
Again, I think credits are still going on at this point. So Mike and Deb are basically hanging out, looking at the sky, while something shoots by, like a comet.
I think that's what they say it is.
Yeah. To progress the movie, Debbie convinced Mike that they should go and investigate it, Scooby-Doo style. So Mike is at first, he's like, I don't have any interest in going. I'd rather stay here in my...
Let's finish our champagne.
Yeah, let's finish our champagne and lay here in the... not cot. It's a...
It's those kind of like the inflatable boats.
Yeah, it's an inflatable boat. Which apparently there was a part cut out with him and the Terenzi brothers that were going to be a conversation about why he has that in his car in the first place.
Oh, because yeah, he mentions to Debbie that they're friends. That's a good guy, and you're like, oh, they're not usually like that. They're good guys. So.
Right. He's like, oh, you're always going to have a good time when the Terenzi brothers show up.
Right.
So, farmer by the name of Gene Green also sees the comet, and accompanied by his dog Pooh Bear, goes to investigate. Well, he finds it all right. It's a circus tent in the middle of the damn woods. As per usual. That's usually where all circuits are shown up.
His thought was, I didn't know the circus was in town.
Maybe we can get free tickets.
Yeah, maybe I'll talk about some free tickets.
His poor Pooh Bear is scooped up into a net, and while screaming to have it returned, Gene is subjected to the defenses of the spacecraft and eventually taken by the clowns.
R.I.P. Pooh Bear.
R.I.P. Pooh Bear. The only animal that we see get eaten, but I mean, if they're taking dogs, then I guess they're just eating everything. We do get a good scene after this or during this of Mooney abusing power against some college kids. It demonstrates the relationship between Dave and him, in my opinion. I think it was quick, but I think that it really showed exactly how new Dave was to the force and how Mooney has been there and feels that he's trying to be edged out as a cop. And these poor kids, I mean, they're college kids, so that's kind of helps explain exactly what age group we're dealing with. Not quite high school, not quite adult. You're still in that late teens, early 20s feel of who these people are. So of course Mooney refers to them as kids because to him they are.
Right.
But the kids are like, yeah, we were just walking through the park with some wine. We were going back to the college campus, man. This guy like hemmed us up. And yeah, they look like straight 80s punks.
Yeah. They look not quality.
No, not at all. So soon after, Mike and Debbie reach the tent, and Mike wants to check it out, of course, walking right into the front door. Now Debbie is afraid. And now I guess seeing upon it as a circus related to her fear of clowns come to the surface. We'll talk about that a bit later, it wasn't really described in the movie. She just really all of a sudden was like, nope. No, I'm good. So basically, while trespassing, they wander around the tent while Mike makes dumbass side show-related jokes and attempts to put Debbie at ease.
Some of them made me laugh.
Did they?
I thought he was pretty funny, but he was just really loud. Like, to be in a stranger's tent and some weird, like, to me, if I entered a tent, it should just be a really big open area, you know?
Right.
And they entered into, like, a hallway.
Right.
Yeah, things don't look right.
Right.
I wouldn't be in there yelling, making fun of it.
And talking about like bulimia,
Yeah,
and other things that are kind of like now I'm like kind of cringy. I'm like, oh, Mike, you're not putting anybody at ease. You're just really making an ass out of yourself.
Yeah.
They do figure out how to open the doors, and they do end up in several strange rooms, including what looks to be the core fusion reactor room of the ship, and then a storage facility for cotton candy.
Yeah. Nothing about a room with a weird popcorn maker on the side with a bunch of buttons and some upside down pink bags screams cotton candy factory to me. But Mike seems to think to reassure Debbie that everything's fine. No, it's just a cotton candy factory.
Yeah, in his infinite wisdom, he states, oh, this must be the room where they hang the cotton candy to dry out.
To dry out.
And even Debbie looks at him like, dumbass.
Yeah.
And just, shoots that idea completely down. Mike decides to rip off a piece as proof to show that he's right, and lo and behold, it reveals the bloody face of Farmer Green. At that point, they freak out. And, now, officially, they're like, oh, wait a minute, this might not be normal.
Yeah, something's wrong here.
Oh, wow. So, a clown is coming in to hang another cotton candy rig, and Mike looks over and sees none other than the face of Joe Lombardo cocooned up. Joe Lombardo that we've seen and heard about all this entire time? Joe Lombardo? Right.
Very important.
No, not at all. I appreciate that they gave the character a background, and apparently he was one of their friends, and they wanted to give him credit in the movie, so he had to have a part. But...
well, he got the biggest part, being a cotton candy bag.
Basically, I mean... Joe Lombardo, and then he screams it like, oh yeah, we know him. Oh no, not Joe Lombardo. They do make a break for it, alerting the clown to their existence, but they're able to escape, but not before the popcorn gun gets shot and blasts them. Now, a pause for a fun fact about the popcorn gun. That is a real popcorn shooting gun. It was made for over $7,000. Oh, that's how much that gun cost.
That is a lot
for them to make. Just so it should shoot popcorn. So when people are like, "Oh, what a weak weapon! Why would they use this? That's why, because it's $7,000. And if I spend $7,000 on a part for a movie, are we going to use it?
Yeah, they do. They use it. I think they use it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it's actually becomes kind of one of the main staples in the movie for weaponry because of what it shoots and what the popcorn represents. They do make it to their car, but not before the clowns render a tracking dog out of a balloon, and they get hot on their trail.
The best character.
Best character is
the balloon dog.
The balloon dog?
Before getting shredded by the tires.
Oh, man. Yeah, they do actually catch up to him. However, Mike does back over them, destroying the cars, and the poor balloon dogs rip balloon dogs. The clowns get knocked on their asses pretty hard, and then one jumps on the front of the car.
Right.
And he throws it gets thrown off, and he's like, rah, and they're just like, rah, and it's a nice scene. Mike and Debbie are able to escape, however, the clowns, they're shown to be following them back to Crescent Cove. So I do want to pause to give credit so far, like I said before, to the scenery and the effects in this movie. As I said, they actually had a popcorn gun designed and built for seemingly one scene, but it did really fire popcorn. The cocoons and the ship are detailed and surreal in effect as heck, somehow being circusy and spaceshipy at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
I thought it was really cool.
It's circus, but then it's also, you can tell that it's supposed to be out of from outer space, and you're like, wow, where am I? What did we wander into?
I think the scenery definitely picked up for the lack of acting in this movie.
Yeah. The one scene, Debbie's like, have you ever seen anything like this before? And he's like, no, I haven't. It's just like, dude, have some emotion other than jackassery.
Gotta play it cool.
There's bigger things going on here than you and laying around in your little rubber raft.
Yeah, Joe Lombardo's dead.
And Joe Lombardo's dead. Yeah. It's a very get in, get out type of scene, but it is long enough to establish these things as evil aliens, that are here not to be our friends. Right. They're definitely here for something more. So thoughts so far. I mean, what we've had some character introduction. We've had, some storyline dealt out there. Well,
like I said, the acting is definitely subpar, but I think it's kind of charming in a sense of, all right, this is kind of, funny, entertaining, even though the acting's pretty bad.
Yeah.
The scenery really picks up this movie, and the circus spaceship thing, it's very, very appealing to the eye.
Well, like I said, I mean, the movie knows what it is. It doesn't try to come in and say, oh, we're the scariest movie of the year, a tour de force. It knows what movie it is. These guys say, you know what, we're making a low-budget film. It's going to be a low-budget film.
I believe it only had $2 million.
Yeah, and I mean, so you've seen movies. I mean, think of, I can't think of the John Travolta movie. I'm sure somebody will hit me with it in the comments or something like that. But that movie was like a blockbuster budget, and it did horrible. It did nothing in comparison to what it should have. I mean, and even, you think of like Legend.
I think it had like, what, $30 million?
And Labyrinth had huge budgets, and they did not come back. I mean, now, of course, they've made their money back. But I mean, I would assume that when a studio makes a movie, it's planning on at least doubling the budget. So if they spend 30, they want to make 60, they make their money back, plus some. Happy to go, happy studio, happy, movie. That's how you end up with sequels of movies that should never have sequels, because somehow those movies do really well and people are like, we should ruin this. But this movie didn't go all out like that. It didn't try to make itself more than what it was. It really just made itself. And that, I think that speaks volumes for the brothers that made the movie and for the movie itself.
For sure.
So back to the movie. Debbie is once again convincing Mike to do something that he's not too keen on to do. Because she has a quote unquote friend that is a police officer. So they show up to the police station, and as they do, they're greeted outside by Deputy Dave, who watches them like wreck out a post office box and then hit the back of the cop car.
Right.
And he's just like, what's going on, Debbie? They move the conversation inside, where Mike's rantings of Killer Klowns and Debbie's, of course, because she's screaming about it, are overheard by Mooney. Mooney has about as much time for this as he does for everything else, which is none.
Yeah.
He also then recognizes Mike as being someone who runs with the Terenzi brothers, who he really hates them. I mean, he clearly has, these guys are the clowns of the neighborhood. So he's like, oh, I get it. You're a tramp.
Yeah.
This is a lover's thing with you and Dave. And the Terenzi brothers, yeah, you're all just full of crap, and I don't want anything to do with it. And that, of course, that's where we do find that Deputy Dave is Debbie's ex-boyfriend, and that does further complicate things. So Moody claims it to be a stunt for selling ice cream by the Terenzi brothers, but Dave is willing to at least investigate the claim, most likely because it involves Debbie. Right. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah,
that's what it comes
also
down
because
to.
they said dead people.
Right.
So.
He said dead people, but I mean...
It's Debbie, so...
Yeah. It's Debbie. So, since he's invalid, they say, but he says, hey, look, Debbie, you got to go back to your house. So she's like, I don't want to go back to my house. I want to go with y'all. But no. She says, either I'm locking you up with Mooney or I'm taking you to your house. So they do that. Meanwhile, the clowns have already invaded Crescent Cove and are making their rounds. They're literally, at one point, going door to door and turning people into cotton candy cocoons.
Right.
Which is comic relief and scary at the same time. I mean, they do it in really creative ways, like offering treats and food. So I guess they would be considered harmless looking. Although if they were at my door, I would assume
I would not have opened the door.
Yeah, I would assume someone who hates me. Why did you make me or send me this gift? I mean, what? Knock, knock, knock. It's not UNICEF. It's not a Candygram. It's a friggin' clown. What?
I definitely peed a little.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not going to answer it in my underwear either. And be like
Right.
the lady, she's like in her lingerie.
I didn't order
like,
pizza.
I didn't order pizza. And it's like, yeah, did you order death? So, sorry.
I mean,
We do have to give a, what I consider a special shout out to one of the scariest scenes for me as a kid, and also now having kids, and that's the damn little girl in the Big Top Burger waving and playing peekaboo with that clown.
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing that finger gesture like that. Come here, come here. I dreamt that for a long time with some nightmares. That damn clown sitting there going, come here at me. And then what does she do? Oh, she's going, oh, peekaboo. Oh, I don't want to sit here and eat my fries. I'm going to come out there where you've got a giant hammer ready to hit me over the head, hidden behind your back. I mean, him just sitting there summoning with her finger is terrifying, because again, I'm afraid of clowns. And then I'm afraid now having kids, having, younger daughter, of something like that happening and them getting taken. Like it gave me a whole new fear watching. I'm like, oh my God,
Right.
What if they got taken?
I thought it was weird that like his mom gets her last second and she didn't look to the right of her and go, oh, there's a weird man here trying to take my kid.
Now I have to ask you, Beth.
I mean,
would you have gone?
he wasn't even offering her anything. I mean, if he had some like food by him, maybe, I don't know. I was hungry.
Is he like holding a BK bag or maybe some candy?
You're right.
What
you got? I mean, what you got on you?
I mean, what are you offering?
It was just a big clown. It's spooky. I mean,
so back to the story. Dave and Mike make it back to the site where the spaceship should have been, but it's gone. But it left a giant crater.
A giant hole, yeah.
And somehow that's not enough for Deputy Dave. I mean, he's been itching to throw cuffs on Mike anyways for being out with Debbie. So this is like his excuse. He's like, yes, you're going in cuffs. And again, while this is going on, the clowns are continuing their rampage of terror across the town. There's a great scene where the small clown gets picked on by a biker. And he's like, what are you going to do? Knock my block off? And he knocks his block off.
I think that's my favorite scene.
That's your favorite scene?
Being a child. Yeah, that was the one we always talked about. But I always thought that was a weird, like, looking at it now, because that clown, like, he wasn't trying to do anything to him but ride his bike. He just wanted to, he didn't really show any, like, initial intent to hurt them. He was just, vibing with them, and then made him sad. Just rode his bike.
I don't know. I mean, all these clowns seem to show up with, like, harmless intentions, and then it goes, like, no, I'm going to kill you. Like, they sit there and shop in that store for how long? Having already turned 2 people into cotton candy. And then, I mean, he's sitting there and he's stacking all the stuff up on the counter like he's going to buy something. And the guy's like, I think I have a problem, on the phone with Mooney. And the Mooney comes back to hear the guy just getting, like, murked out in the background. So it's like they like to play with their food. They like to have a little bit of fun. They're sadistic. They're sicko clowns, man.
Yeah.
They're killer clowns, but they're sicko clowns as well.
I don't know. The little clown's always been my favorite one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they call him Jojo as well. And the clowns don't have names. People have given them names like Spike and Jojo and something else. They give, but like, they're just in the credits, they're just killer clowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I tried to see if that was something so I could, say what their names were, but we're just saying killer clowns. So, for the progression of the story, it really depends on Dave starting to believe Mike. So, to do this in the movie, they decided to go to the top of the world for whatever reason. I was thinking maybe they went up there. Either it was a path back.
Yeah, I thought it was a pack, like they were driving back down to the town. They had to go through that first.
They had to go through the top of the world. I didn't know that or they were searching for the Terenzi brothers to bust them too. Oh. Like Dave was like, I'm done with this and now I'm going to get them too. But I guess that makes sense.
No, well, but if they had gone through that in the first place, then they would have seen the cars all empty and
all
such.
purple,
yeah,
pink. So yeah, there's that. So Dave finds that the cars are all filled with cotton candy substance and everyone is like gone. He finds like some broken glasses. I guess that's enough for him. He's like, oh, well, he changes his mind and he starts believing Mike, takes the cuffs on him. And, he starts trusting him, I like this scene because Mike was talking about how I don't want to go with him. He's probably going to take me up there and beat me up.
Yeah.
And then he's like, don't hit me. I think he says, what are you going to do? Hit me? Or something like that. So like literally he's afraid that what he was worried about is going to come true. And I thought that was really, really, really funny.
Yeah.
So back at the station, Mooney has started getting all these complaints about clowns. And instead of believing the story, he chooses to think that it's a conspiracy of dim-witted Terenzi brothers again. He thinks basically they've somehow got the entire town to conspire against him, I guess to get him to retire.
Yeah, I think that's what he said.
That's
to put him out.
Yeah, he's like, you're not gonna put me out. You're not gonna put. I mean, I can appreciate being obtuse, but wow, I mean that takes some time to plan. To if they really did, hey, entire town, here's what we're gonna do. We're all gonna start making fake calls into Mooney that there's clowns taking over the town. That seems more believable than there's.
I gotta tell you, I don't got time for that.
For which one?
Like some guys, we're gonna call up the police station and make a bunch of fake calls about clowns taking over the world. You in? No. No.
Even if I'm that age and it's like, oh, it's gonna be fun. No, it's really not.
I was raised better.
I was raised better. We do cut back to more clown carnage at this time. It's the scene where the levitating clown that's driving, he runs the guy off the bridge. Now, an interesting point about this scene, it was the initial concept thought up by Steven Chiodo, one of the Chiodo brothers. He brought this scene, the thought and the concept of this theme, to his brothers, and they expounded upon it and said, you know what? Let's make the clowns aliens. Mm. So that's kind of where you get that line, that the tagline of the movie is, in space, no one can eat ice cream. Because in the movie Alien, which I think came out in like 78, 79, maybe something like that, with Sigourney Weaver, the tagline was, in space, no one can hear you scream.
Oh, that's funny.
So they played on that because of them being aliens. And that movie is a lot scarier than I initially thought it was. And it has to do with not so much of the rubber-suited xenomorph. I'm talking about the very, very original. It just has to do with the fact that you're stuck with like no weapons and no nothing, and this thing is hunting you.
Yeah.
And that was a really, really scary. It's scary for me now.
And have the people on the ship also slowly disappearing, dying, and such.
Yeah. So originally, like I said, it was supposed to be the opening scene of the movie. They just wanted, like, right off the jump, there's going to be some death. But it was pushed aside and turned into a kill scene during the clown rampage. So things are getting pretty dicey in old Crescent Cove, huh?
Yeah.
So which would you say would be worse? Because we're going to talk about the being ballooned in a while here. Which is worse, being spun into food, put in a balloon, or just being killed?
Well, if I was Debbie and I was put into a balloon and people cared about me, then I would rather be in the balloon. But I think that I'd rather just die if that's the case.
Yeah,
because they weren't looking to save anybody else in those balloons during that scene, and it's better than being a cotton candy thing. And I mean, those people seem to die instantly, anyways. But I mean,
yeah, you're pretty much dead. I think as soon as you get
I don't want a straw stuck into me.
Gosh.
It was horrible.
Yeah. So we do return to Debbie, who is just now showering and changing, and somehow the popcorn from the gun is still latching to her, which it didn't still latch to Mike. As Debbie gets into the shower, we can see the popcorn crawling along the floor. And that to me was reminiscent of the meat crawling across the kitchen floor in Poltergeist. Do you remember that? Have you the original, not the remake Poltergeist?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, man, anybody who has seen this, and we're probably going to review Poltergeist sometime around October, I think we're going to do that like as a Halloween episode.
Scary movies.
September, October time frame. But man, there is a scene where one of the investigators is in the kitchen and he's looking for food late at night, and he decides to put all this stuff out, and he turns his light back, and it might actually be up on the counter, not on the floor. I don't know why it would have been on the floor, but he had put a piece of raw meat on the floor. I mean, dang it, on the counter. and it's going.
Oh, I actually, I have seen. I remember that. Yes, it was on the counter.
Shines the light on it. It just starts to like explode meat chunks out of it, and then the chicken falls out of his mouth, and there's we'll go into that bigger when we review the movie. But holy cow, you want to talk about a movie? And see, that
was gross.
That's not necessarily just gross out or scary, but oh my god, could you imagine being in that situation?
Oh, true.
I mean, just horrible.
I think I would start being vegetarian after that.
I think I would just go ahead and peel my face off. Oh wait, he does. So anyway, Mike and Dave, they're still driving back, and they come across a clown putting on a shadow puppets show. He does a bus of different shapes, ending in a T-Rex that swoops down and eats all the people that are watching. He then has them in his hands and puts them into a bag full of popcorn. Assumably now they have become popcorn? Now we're going to get back to a theory about what this could mean a little bit later. All right. So, you hear him kind of screaming in there.
Right.
But then the whole entire bag is full of popcorn. So, what? So, I'm assuming that they have become popcorn.
Yeah, me as well.
So, Mike does reach his foot across and slams on the gas pedal. He's trying to run the clown down. I mean, I guess from his point of view, it worked earlier when he ran him over. So, why not try again? But it leaps up supernaturally into the air and they crash into the wall. Now, I use the word again, crash, real lightly because these crashes, these car crashes are just like, and then them kind of flopping forward.
Like tapping the thing.
Yeah. Oh, but I mean, they were going like 45. So if you crash into a brick wall at 45 miles an hour, you may walk away from it, but you're not going to live well. I don't think. All of the car crash scenes are pretty sad in the movie. Even the guy that got run off the bridge, they had issues with the rig working and it dropping. I think it was supposed to actually fly off the bridge, but instead it just kind of toppled off awkwardly. So anyway, when Dave hits the wall, and then later back at when the Terenzi brothers rented the ice cream truck, he bounces the exact same way off the steering wheel. Like when he wrecks, he's like, he puts his arms up and he's like hits the steering wheel. So I just thought that was really funny, the way that they did it. And they're just like, okay, ready, wreck. And he's just like, same wreck.
Oh gosh.
There's really no damage to the car the first time.
No.
The second time when he hits the Terenzi brothers, though,
the hood's all.
The hood's up enough to where he has to get into the ice cream truck with them.
Yeah.
I noticed that the second, or when I watched it here recently, because I was like, wait a minute, did he go with them? Yeah. So Dave does try to radio into Mooney to call the State Boys, but he's completely done with the whole thing and drops the golden F-bomb on old Dave at his request to help out. He says, call the State Boys. And he's like, no, F you, over.
Yeah, cuts him off.
Yeah, I call it the golden F-bomb because it's a PG-13 movie. And at that time, I don't know about now, but at that time, you were allowed to say the F word one time in the movie. Because later, when Mooney, you can actually see where they dubbed it, where he did say it, but he says freak. It's what I think he says. He hangs up the phone or he's doing something, and he says, you can see he says, what the F, but it goes freak. It's right before the clown walks in. So anyway, you get one. I don't know what the rules are now with PG-13, but I know what they were then. So Dave and Mike decide to split up again so that Dave can return to the station himself and call for help. Mike is going to go ahead to Debbie's to check on her. But he doesn't have a ride. So, of course, this is when the Terenzi brothers are chasing after their truck that somehow got away from them. They're arguing about the girls that were with them earlier, that they had promised ice cream.
Yeah.
And they're like, what about the girls? They're like, yeah, never mind about the girls. So Mike persuades them to give him a lift to Debbie's with promises of well-built lady roommates. he's like, does she have roommates? Yeah, she's got 2 beautiful roommates, big boobs. And they're like, yeah.
All important qualities.
Yes, all right. How are they in conversation? We don't know, but here's what we got. So that's what we want. Again, B movie. So that's what you get.
Yeah.
So while Dave is in transit to the station and Mike is in transit to Debbie's with the bros, we do get to watch a classic scene between Mooney and one of the clowns. Now, this is where my favorite line of the movie, and he says, well, what the goddamn to do? What do we have here? That line, I had to watch myself for a long time as a kid afterwards because I like really wanted to say it at everything when something would happen. I'd just be like, and my parents were like, no. And of course I didn't say God, I said got, but no, they weren't having me walking around the house saying that. So Mooney is subjected to several clown jokes like fake hands and squirter flowers. And, finally one of those New Year's Eve blower things grabs him by the throat and chokes him into the bar cell. And that knocks him out. Assumably, I don't think that kills him. He dies some way, but I think that just knocked him out and then the clown killed him off scene, whatever.
I think when he sticks his hand to the back of him, that's what probably killed him.
Yeah, that probably did do it. Sadly for the guys in the cell that were arrested earlier by Mooney, I don't think it's going to work out for them.
No,
So, what are you in for? And the clown's just looking at him like,
talk about wrong place, wrong time.
Right,
Those guys got the end of the stick for sure.
They got the shaft. They got the huge shaft. So Dave does show up looking all over the station, see what's going on, because like the lights are out. He sees those giant footprints on the walls, the floor, the ceiling. I think that's so cool.
See, this scene was actually kind of scary to me because it's like that anticipation. It's like, is something going to jump out at me? What's going to happen?
Right.
So he goes into the jail cell, and there's those footprints, and they're everywhere in that room. And it's all over the place. He's like, "What are you in here?"
He finds the two cocoons. He finds the two guys got cocoons. Like, so unfortunate for them. That's pretty much what their fate. So these poor guys that were just trying to get through the park and go back home end up, dead.
Yeah.
So that stinks. So when he comes back out looking for Mooney, he comes upon the clown sitting in a chair, and it spins around slowly and has Mooney made up like a dummy. So someone did make a dummy out of him after all, literally, because he had said earlier in the movie, no one's going to make a dummy out of me. Well,
joke's on you.
Yeah.
You're dead now.
So the clown makes him talk to Dave, telling him, don't worry, Dave. All we want to do is kill you. And
yeah.
that happening, him pulling the hand out and sloughing it like with the blood and throwing the body onto the floor. See, that to me, where everything was kind of like, ha 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 ha, oh ha ha ha. That scared me, man. Like I really did not want to be made into a dummy.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that at all. It was kind of like the line had been drawn, and they were like, yeah, okay, so here was the funny stuff, with the clowns going through the compartments, the store, and then them going through the houses at the puppet show, and now here's a clown with his hand in this guy's back, and he's dead.
And once again, it comes to the whole sadistic and playing with the food thing. He could have killed Mooney from the jump when he walked in. I mean, he could have just pulled the gun, but no, he didn't want to do that. He wanted to sit there and pull off his hands and squirt him in the face with water and, do all of that kind of stuff. They don't just kill people, it seems. They mess around first. And that really is, to me, again, is a scary feeling. So the clown comes after Dave. Dave shoots a couple body shots at him and it just has no effect on him. So
David has poor aim.
Dave has poor. So then he takes aim. He sees the nose and he shoots at it. And the thing spins and blows up. So now, hooray, we know how to kill the killer clowns.
Yeah.
Which seems pretty easy when you think about it. It's the giant red nose on the end of their face, which is right out there. But I guess nobody thinks about that.
It would have been great if when they blew up, like two more spawned.
Oh my god! Like two little,
two little ones, and they were much faster.
They run around.
Start charging.
They sound like the thing from Labyrinth. So I do want to take a pause now to mourn the death of Mooney.
I will not be taking a pause. I hate this character. Absolutely, probably the worst character this whole time. Just a real jerk.
I enjoy it. So, all right. Our other heroes, and I use that term loosely, are also meeting similar clown-related issues. Mike and the bros are driving around, and the brothers just they're not hearing it. Apparently, they've been able to make it through the town without coming across anything. And then they stumble upon the clown parade where they're gathering the cotton candy cocoons that have been brought onto the streets. And they're doing it through what looks like a parade float with a suction tube on it. Now, that again is another scene that really bothered me as a kid. And I think it has a lot to do with, as I said, we were going to discuss, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Because in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, they used pods that looked similar to these things. And then the guy said that was an afterthought. He didn't really mean to do that. But then when he saw it, he's like, oh yeah, I guess it does look like that. But they would put these pods next to you when you fell asleep, and literally the people grow into you and you die.
Oh, that's
you
horrible.
turn to dust. Like it's like through osmosis is how these things take over you. And they're just like you, like down to the T, but no emotion. Emotion is a human emotion. It's a human characteristic. So these things, they don't care about emotion. They don't care about love. They don't care about how you feel or fear or anything like that. They don't have it. And this pod part where there's all these pods being tossed around and collected made me think of that movie so much. And that is a scary aspect of that movie. That's another movie where they use the tactic of where you're running around and people don't believe you until it's too late.
Right.
And where you're being basically eaten. I mean, you're not necessarily being turned into a pod person, but you're being eaten, absorbed into a pod person. So, I mean, that's pretty horrible. So Debbie is finally done with her 45-minute shower.
Yeah, for sure.
She's not at all green thinking. She has no forward thinking at all. And she finds that the popcorn has transformed into Killer Klowns snake things that start biting her.
They look like the things that you get out of Snake in the Can. That's what they look like to me.
Nice. She does try to escape her house by like jumping out the window or going out the front door, but the clowns have surrounded her house.
I thought that was hilarious.
And they put her in a balloon.
Not so funny.
Yeah, this also happened to another lady earlier in the story when Mooney was getting a phone call. You heard the guy say, "They just took my wife away in a balloon." Oh. And he's like, "Oh, they took your wife away in a balloon, huh?" He's very meh, but now he's dead, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So all of these things play into a pretty huge fan theory about the clown's life cycle and their reproduction, and we're going to talk about that later. But the popcorn and everything like that, it's really interesting. So Mike and the bros show up in time to see Debbie being taken away in the balloon. And then they go on a super fast forwarded chase with them. Like they play the car chase, but like they fast forwarded the movie on purpose. So the cars are going a lot faster than they should be. But you can tell that it's been fast forwarded. And again, it's a play on itself. I enjoyed it. Dave sees it going on, joins in. But then the bros like, they see his lights and, oh, it's the cops. Slam on the brakes.
Yeah.
And when they do, it's another sad car crash, which we discussed. Not really any damage, but I guess enough damage to have Dave chuck his body against the steering wheel, and the car's now out of commission. So they do lose the clowns because they're in fast forward and they got away. But then they figure out, and I'm not sure who it was. I don't know I think it was Mike or Dave, that they had moved their ship to the amusement park that's on the coast, like that actually exists. So luckily the hunch pays off and they find the ship there. And we get another last minute kill here when the inept security guard asks the clowns, "What are you going to do with those pies, boys?"
I thought it was horrible.
And they chuck the acid pies at him and he melts into a goo.
Yeah.
And they put the cherry on top of him. I really had a problem with this as well. Like that, the whole just getting hit with pies and melting.
Yeah.
Like melting would be a horrible way to die.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to melt to death.
And he seemed still alive.
Oh.
You know, like, well, no,
Yeah.
I mean, he was bones, but I'm saying when he started getting hit, you know, he's falling and he's alive.
Yeah.
But man, I would not want to be melting and die. So, all right. So the stage for Act 3 has been set. The damsel is in distress and our quote unquote heroes have arrived to save her. One of the Terenzi brothers even goes to like, look like, I thought he was going to taste that ice cream.
I thought he was going to put it in his mouth. Yeah.
I'm like, God, he's going to put that in his mouth. So to me, this part kind of had a Super Mario Brothers feeling level to me. I don't know why. it just did. It's where, you know, they're showing up and it's like a fun house, like one of the cave scenes when he's down and there's yeah. So they discuss theories about the clowns and where they come from while they're walking around. And they even talk about how they may have been here before. And I kind of like this. You know, maybe it's not just a random stop in. Maybe they've come to Earth. I mean, when we first see the cocoon, I guess when they're in the cotton candy room, it's very sparing. It's there's not a whole bunch. And then when we come back to it, I think it's jammed packed.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's
everybody in the town's dead.
Yeah, everybody in the town has basically been eaten. So, you know, maybe our version of clowns and circuses are based off of these aliens visiting, you know, in the past.
Which I thought was pretty smart of Dave to say.
Yeah, right. You know, so after some existential discussion, not really.
Yeah.
Not really. The Terenzi bros drop into a ball pit with two female clowns, and like their chest like actually like blows up in front of them.
I thought it was funny that before they had fallen, there was a big red button on the wall. And they were like, everybody else walked past it just fine. The one at the end was like, a button. Let's press it. And it scared everybody else. But yeah, then they fall into that hole and there's the girls and you're like, are you Debbie's roommates?
Right. Yeah, the intentions of these clowns don't seem to be dangerous.
Yeah, it's the first female clowns you see though.
Right, and it's the first, yep. Dave and Mike make their way back to the cotton candy room, which is now, I mean, like I said, it's filled to the brim with victims and balloons. And, you know, it just really puts in there the fact of how many people have died. Like, literally the entire town is dead.
Right.
They watch a clown enter with a bendy straw and drink from one of the cocoons.
Which was horrible.
Which basically, you know, is very unsettling. But it definitely does show that they're here for food source replenishment, I think.
Yeah.
So they find Debbie in one of the balloons and they shoot it to get it open. And what is she says, I couldn't breathe. And yuck.
Yeah.
I mean, I would not want, whatever their intentions are, I wouldn't want to suffocate to death.
For sure. And then being in that situation, and also you're like breathing heavily, stressed out. I mean, you're going to run out of air pretty fast. Right.
So they start to escape, but are basically running through the ship, which is built like a funhouse. This is the another door scene, which is one of the most frustrating scenes. And it's not really so much scary. I mean, I guess if you're trying to get away and all you've got is these doors after door after door and things are catching up on you, you do kind of get that anxiety feeling.
Yeah.
But Mike
didn't seem worried at all.
Another door?
What's behind this one? Another door? Gosh.
They do make it to the center of the ship, and they're surrounded on all sides by these clowns. I mean, they're completely overtaken. When what happens, the Terenzi bros break through the wall, driving the ice cream truck, and they use the megaphone and the giant JoJo head into convincing the clowns not to hurt the trio. But just real fast, did you notice what the Terenzi bros, their clothes are all ripped up?
Yeah, and they're also covered in kisses. Yeah.
So it's like, what exactly happened?
Yeah.
Whatever it was rough. And, it made me think of, when I watched it today, it made me think of Jake and the clowns from Adventure Time.
Oh, yeah. When they get
the clowns are like, the clowns are like, oh, did you kisses in order to heal you? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is frightening.
Yeah.
Everybody jumps into the truck, which won't start, of course, because it's that kind of movie. It's a horror movie, and trucks aren't going to.
Well, that ice cream truck has also been through so much,
like
already.
A wall.
Yeah, like the wall.
And then we hear kind of like a gong sound. And all of the little clowns start to back off and disappear back from where they came from. And this is where we see the giant Clownzilla, as it's been so named. Mm. It's not actually called Clownzilla. It's not called Clownzilla in the movie, but they call it. Everybody's referred to it in the last 30 years as Clownzilla. Mm. It gets lowered down like a marionette basically to destroy them. And it takes their anger out on that truck. The JoJo head.
Yeah.
And the bros, they're like, they won't leave the truck because it's rented, and they get trucked across the room into a wall, bursting into flames.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that an ice cream truck is going to burst into flames like that, but it was a really cool effect. So we'll take it. We'll take it. Looks like they're done at this point.
Yeah.
Dave decides to play the hero and tells Mike and Debbie to run out of the convenient hole that's now been put into the side of the wall by the ice cream truck. They do. And they make it out alive just in time to run into the state boys that Dave called. So that's cool. The big top spaceship starts to take off about this time as well. Dave's in the hand of Clownzilla. Clownzilla looks like he's about to eat him. Dave remembers, wait, the nose.
The nose, right.
So he pulls off his badge, pops the guy in the nose, and it just boom. Same effect as before, grander scale, blows up. So grand, in fact, that it blows the entire ship to smithereens.
Yeah.
So now Debbie is sad clown. As we like to say.
Everyone's dead.
She's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's really sad that Dave is dead. However, then we hear a whistling noise, and it's the clown car, which who exits out of it? Dave. He's alive. And oh, good. The Terenzi bros are also in the car and unscathed. They had happened to hide in the ice cream cooler when it blew up. Now, how they had time to flip through where they were standing in the car to get into the ice cream, then have the smarts to get to the other car to get in with Dave, we'll just leave that to movie magic. We're just going to leave that.
It's the power of love.
Yeah, it's the power of love, as would be sung in Back to the Future. It's the power of love, man. So they look to the sky, and I think Debbie says, "Is it over?" And they get hit in the face with pies. And of course, I hope they're not acid pies, because, wow, that would be really bad to just get semi-melted.
Another good note is the fact of how they're standing. You got Debbie goes to hug Dave, and Mike's also like, "Oh, glad you're okay, bro." And then Dave starts like kissing the back of Debbie's head while she looks up at the thing exploding, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
See, to me,
Mike's just okay with that.
That relationship, until they sit there and say, "Oh, it's because we were dating." That relationship to me always seems more of like a bigger brother, like older cousin type, kind of relationship. Like, I care about you, but not dating. But then, they were dating. I do also want to talk about the theory of the reproduction cycle of the clowns.
Right.
So it is said that the popcorn is actually like the first stage of the clown life cycle. Then they go into, so at first you have where they turn the people into the popcorn. So now they've been basically turned into little embryos. They store those in the popcorn machine until they need to make more clowns. They put the clowns out into something that they can feed on. Now, I don't know what they were feeding on in the laundry basket, but they were in the toilet and they were in the cosmetics. And then also when one of the kill scenes, they're in the trash can outside of the Big Top Burger. The one clown sprinkles them in there. So I'm assuming if they have something to feed on, then they turn into the snaky clown type deal. And then from there, they turn on to full-on clowns. So that's a big fan theory that they actually are... That is their life cycle. If that's true, though, what's the point of having female clowns? Now, see, another fan theory is that the female clowns are actually females that have been turned into killer clowns. So that's why you have
that's interesting.
Them put into the balloons, and why the wife is put into a balloon and taken, everything like that. That they're taken and then somehow transformed into female clowns, which is why they weren't looking to kill. They were looking more to, I guess, mate. Yeah. But they're rough. They are rough. So, another thing with these type of movies, and it's very 80s for me, is the whole aftermath thing. Like, I often think about what, in a movie, like, what's the next day like? Everybody's been killed in your town. The state boys show up, thankfully, in time to see something blowing up in the sky. And of course, now you'll have the five of you saying, look, the town was basically ravaged out by killer clowns. But everybody's gone. Like, how do you go? Like, what's your next door? What's your next day like? I mean, like, do their parents live there? Did their parents get taken by the clowns? it's so weird to me. And I think about that all the time in movies, like even, I don't know, I guess Terminator kind of tells you exactly what happened next. I mean, with the sequels and everything like that. But a movie that doesn't have a sequel, but had a really weird thing that happened, and now, we have to go on to normal life. That just blows my mind to think about.
The B movie, as an example.
It's the B movie, right? The B movie. There you go. Not a B movie, but the B movie. You like jazz?
But I mean, if you have what you're saying is the reproduction thing, those clowns are in the trash can or in Debbie's room are still there.
Right.
It's not like, or maybe blowing up the big Godzilla clown, whatever, kills all of them. I mean, that could have been a thing. Like,
I guess maybe you kill one and then the rest of them are zoomed out.
But
maybe. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing is, I mean, there's a whole bunch of remnants of clowns left over.
Also having to go clean up the town if you're going to still be there. I mean, there's still the cotton candy people that are left behind.
Right.
And
did all the clowns make it back to the ship?
That too. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep. So that's basically the end of that. So we already discussed earlier when I was talking about the movie about the invisible car wanting to be the original. I mean, that was when these brothers decided that they were going to make the movie. That was his concept idea for the movie. In the movie, there are 2 cutscenes for sure that were cut out. One of them would help. Both of them drag the movie on a bit, so I understand why they got cut, but they do help a little bit, at least the one, to explain Debbie's situation of why, when she's so gung-ho on going to investigate, when they show up and it's a circus tent, she's like, no. Basically, it tells a tale from her childhood about how she had a terrifying experience at the circus with a clown, where like a clown came and picked her up and put her on his shoulders and took her down to the center stage. And everybody was laughing, and she was screaming and terrified, but everybody was like, ha, 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 ha. And the clown was laughing. Which kind of, then if you think about the part in her apartment, what does the clown do? The clown picks her up and laughs. And I think that would have helped to play upon that fear that she has of clowns and why she was so adamant about really not wanting to go in there. It was more than just being like, oh, now I've changed my mind. So that was one scene that got cut. The second scene that got cut was when Dave and Mike and Debbie are back at the ship, and they're running away from all the clowns. There's like this crazy tightrope scene where they have to, like, they're walking a tightrope to escape from the clowns. They actually go up tightrope stairs, and it's really, really weird. I mean, visually it's not huge because it's basically just a really dark room with a rope that's drawn on the ground, I think. But it didn't really add to the movie, but I think it was kind of a neat concept. I think the concept definitely went a lot further than the scene would have gone. We do know that to kill the killer clowns, you have to hit them in the nose. And they said this is an homage to the zombie horror films genre. Basically, you shoot the zombie in the brain, it kills the zombie. You can shoot a zombie anywhere and it doesn't die until you hit it in the brain. Hit the clown in the nose,
thing, right?
Kill the clown. So they did say that is the truth. You may have noticed that in this week's thumbnail art is it's Beth and I made up as the balloon dogs. It is, of course, a reference to the scene when, well, I guess there's twice when they have a balloon dog chasing after them, after Mike and Debbie and Dave at the end. But during the movie, they actually had to dip the legs in liquid latex and blow dry them to keep them from continuously popping. They kept hitting things such as like pine cones and such, and they would pop. So they would have to film again and again and again. So they dipped them in latex. So Charles Chiodo of the Chiodo brothers actually played what has become now known as Clownzilla at the end of the movie. That's him. That's one of the brothers. Yep. I thought that was pretty cool. And to keep the budget in check, they asked their friends, such as Mike Tobacco, the Terenzi brothers, Joe Lombardo, famous Joe Lombardo. All of those were friends of the director. So they basically did it. And of course, not for free, but they agreed to be in the movie. And that really helped them to save the budget. They also, did a lot of the special effects and all that stuff. It was what they're kind of known for themselves. So that $2 million budget really went to production. They were able to do it, to use it differently than what others would have, which is pretty neat. So now a disappointing fact. Although there were talks and plans of sequels or a sequel series or even a remake potentially, since Disney owns everything now, it's pretty much been shelved permanently. And, I'm 50-50 on that. I'm not really upset about it necessarily because, I don't think whatever bastardized version that would come out would just insult the original movie to me. Like, I like the movie crappy.
Yeah, honestly, I think that if they were to remake it, they would try to make it more of that scary aspect instead of it being, making fun of itself.
Right.
Which was the quality of it. I think that it wouldn't do it justice.
I want it bad. I want that 80s synth music and the bad graphics, of the car coming up. I want the sped up film races and stuff. I want that. That's part of it for me. And not to jump on Poltergeist again, but the Poltergeist remake, if they just wanted to make another movie and make things like that, okay, fine. But to try and remake something that holds so dear to so many people, I don't think they hit the mark.
No.
It didn't add anything new for me. So to make remakes of some of these 80s movies, I think is almost insulting in a way because it doesn't have that same feeling to it. So, your overall thoughts of the film?
Well, I thought it was a pretty good movie. One of my favorite movies. Growing up. I thought there was okay characters, obviously the acting's bad, but I thought it had a pretty good storyline. I mean, nothing, again, it was a charming movie. It was good to watch. I was entertained the entire time. It was funny.
Would you recommend it to a friend?
I definitely would recommend it to a friend.
If a friend came over to stay over, would you be like, hey, do you want to watch Killer Klowns from Outer Space?
I would. I would.
All right. Of course, we're going to give the film our moo rating. Best of 5, 0 to 5. So how many moos do you give it?
I give it 4 out of 5 moos.
That's awesome. I am going to give a strong 4.5 out of 5. I know that I have not ranked in the past, which is unfortunate. I give Labyrinth, just as a reference, so if you listen in order, you'll know. I give Labyrinth a 4.
Oh, wow.
And I give Legend a 3. But this one gets a 4.5 for me. I absolutely love Killer Klowns from Outer Space. I hope that we did justice to this movie for what it is. And I understand people can be like, well, it's a B movie, man. How can you love that stupid movie? No. No, this movie for what it is, it owns itself. And it was a quintessential movie for being a scary clown movie. Like people, why are you afraid of clowns? I don't know. I'm just afraid of them. Then Killer Klowns from Outer Space came out, and then you knew why you were afraid of clowns. Because you didn't want to get put in cotton candy.
Also thinking about it like this way, this movie got a 78 on the Rotten Tomatoes when, Legend only got 38.
Wow.
And Legend had $30 million as a budget, and this movie only had 2. So,
wow.
There's really quality over quantity.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all.
I think on IMDb, Killer Klowns got less. It got a 6.2 and Legend got a 6.5. But still, Rotten Tomatoes is pretty much what I go off of.
Yeah, sure. Which version of Legend?
That's
the
fair.
Director's cut, the English, the American. You never know. All right. So that does bring us to the end. We are going to wrap this up. I'd like to thank everyone for stopping by and listening to our 3rd episode. We do deeply, deeply appreciate you more than you can imagine. Of course, the best way to say you love us is to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and a review. I've seen where some people have stopped by and given us ratings, which we appreciate, but a review would be nice to give other people that might be scanning through something to read. We're starting to show up. We're starting to get more stats in. And all of that is because of you guys. It's not got anything to do with us. We're putting a show. We get to talk to each other, which we're going to do anyways. And, you guys are tuning in and listening. And I think that's just awesome. It amazes me. Even people that love me and that are our family, for you to take the time out to do this is just awesome.
Sure.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. the other day you had shown me the stats of where people were listening, and I thought, you know, it was going to be people from where we are and people from the side of the family, like in Florida and stuff. But
Right.
it's not. It's really all over the place. There's people everywhere listening.
Massachusetts, Texas, California, Washington, Nebraska, France.
France, yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
It's just mad to me. I expected we'd get, and it would be Florida and Roanoke, Virginia. So the fact that we have people just downloading and listening and then continuing to download and listen, that's a real big thing. I mean, not only did they listen to episode 1 and they liked it enough to where they listened to episode 2. Hopefully they're going to listen to episode 3 and beyond. And I just really enjoy doing this. I'm having a great time doing the research.
I think it's really cool to break down the movie like we are.
Breaking down the movie.
It's
I gotta say, I'm loving doing this, and I want to continue to do it, and I just really appreciate all the support.
Yeah, for sure.
So in summation, you can email us at the yesteryearpodcast@gmail.com. We haven't got any emails yet, so hopefully somebody email and say, hey, you guys are pretty cool. Thanks for doing what you do.
Yeah, send us your favorite characters from this movie.
Send us your favorite characters. Send us our, your favorite clown. Your thoughts. If you think, you guys are out of your head, this isn't what it is. This is what it is. I want to know, and we will respond back. Twitter.com, yesteryearpcast, Instagram.com, yesteryearpodcast, Facebook.com, yesteryearpodcast. Of course, we have our Facebook group, Truffle Shufflers. The secret question is, what are the host names? And that's James and Beth. Our website is yesteryearpodcast.buzzsprout.com. Our Patreon page, if you'd like to go ahead and support us in a different way, is patreon.com/The Nostalgia Group. For those of you that leave us a review, and this is part of the Patreon at certain levels, but we were going to go ahead for, if you do take the time to leave us a 5-star review and you leave us a written review, which would be great, and you post a screenshot of it.
Yeah, send us an email.
Either, an email or, so that way we see it for sure, because if you do it in the Facebook group, we might miss it. But if you do it and you send us an email, we're going to send you a sticker. We went ahead and got some stickers for the Yesteryear podcast. Those, they should be in sometime in the next week, hopefully, is what it's supposed to say. So then we'll be mailing those out. And if you leave us those 5-star reviews, we will definitely hook you up. In the future, of course, that'll be for Patreons only. But for now, we really want, the support, and we want to say thank you. And that's just the best way that we can think to do so. Of course, also a shout out to Greg Revan for doing the show's music and for doing the Patreon shows, Nostalgia Group's music.
Also a shout out to Pooh Bear.
To Pooh Bear the dog.
R.I.P.
Rip. We are really sad for Pooh Bear and for what happened. Not sure which one we're going to do next week. We have 3 in the running. Beth is excited as daylights for all 3 of them. Let me tell you, she has no clue even what they are, and she said they all sound the same.
Yeah, my face screams excitement.
So, with that, we'll wrap it up. And as always, we love you. Say goodnight, Beth.
All right, good night.